The third type of resolution we're going to talk about is spectral resolution. Hopefully you remember from the lecture on electromagnetic radiation that light comes in a variety of wavelengths. Now our eyes, for example, can see in the appropriately named visible portion of that spectrum. But the really cool thing about remote sensing is that on these satellites orbiting the Earth, there are different sensors. And inside each sensor you have different cameras. And each camera is sensitive to different portions of the electromagnetic spectrum. That's where the power of remote sensing comes from. Being able to see not just high, but also in colors that we could never even imagine in our own minds. Let's take a look at the definition here. Spectral resolution can be defined as the locations and widths of bands, or the different cameras that I was just talking about. But let's take a concrete example of Landsat, OLI, the Operational Land Imager, and see what that means. Landsat has a number of bands, or OLI has a number of bands, a number of cameras if you will. Bands 2, 3, and 4 are the familiar blue, green, and red bands, but there's some other ones which are very important. For example, band number 5 is the red edge band. It's a near-infrared band, which is very important for vegetation. Bands 6 and 7 are shortwave infrared. Over here I've zoomed in so you can't see it. This is a graphic from NASA, but there's a thermal imager also. OLI also has the cirrus band and a coastal aerosol band right here. We don't talk too much about those. But what would an image look like from Landsat, OLI, for different sorts of land cover? So first of all, let's think about what different types of land cover look like spectrally. Soil, for example, if we consider wavelength on this axis and reflectance right here, soil is going to be reflecting light maybe in a curve that looks something like this. Of course, there's different kinds of soil, so this is just an example. Dry vegetation might have a curve that looks like this, and green vegetation will have a more distinctive curve that looks like this. All right? So let's imagine how Landsat might see that, or the OLI sensor might see that. In terms of looking at pixels which are covered in soil, the values that you might get for different bands are something like this in terms of reflectance. So band 1, band 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4 are the blue, green, and red bands. Band 5, near infrared, and then the counting is a little bit strange here. This is actually band 9, cirrus, and then 6 and 7 in the shortwave infrareds. Now it's not exactly a curve that you get, but you are able to get different points along this axis with different reflectances that allow you to say, well, this is probably something that might be soil. If we consider dry vegetation, it looks different than soil, right? So dry vegetation has higher values in the red edge, the near-infrared band 5, and then also in the cirrus, and then in the shortwave infrared 1 band particularly. Now, the big difference comes with green vegetation. Green vegetation looks something like this. As you'd imagine, healthy growing plants are absorbing a lot of blue and red light. They're reflecting some green light, that's why they look green. But here in the near-infrared, they're reflecting as much as possible. And this is a characteristic of plants, where they are able to reflect near-infrared light because they can't use it to photosynthesize. It just damages them, so they reflect it. There's also some changes in the shortwave infrared. So these changes in the values that you get for given bands are the way that we're able to distinguish between different land covers in remote sensing. Now, a quick word on the SAR applications such as PAL-SAR 2. We'll talk about that a lot later, but there are not bands in this sense, but rather polarizations that we can use in a similar fashion.